Maida Coleman here.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Is Commissioner Roop on yet?
I am here.
Excellent. I believe that brings us all into attendance, so we can go at 10:15. All right, it is now 10:15 a.m. and all commissioners are in attendance, so we will call the agenda meeting for October 28th, 2020 to order. Due to COVID-19, the commission will continue conducting agendas via WebEx for the foreseeable future. I ask all those participating on the call to please mute your phone unless you need to speak. Today we will be withdrawing the second and fourth items under tariff and new orders. Those are EO 2021-0021 and EO 2020-0315. So that leaves us with 5 remaining orders. Also, there will not be a USB meeting following today's agenda as originally planned. That will be sometime in the next week, and we will talk about that on upcoming scheduling. So first up is to approve the minutes from October 21st, 2020. You all have seen those. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from October 21st, 2020, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those minutes are approved 5-0. First up in tariffs and new orders is file number EU 2020-0350. This is in the matter of the application of Evergy Metro Inc., DBA Evergy Missouri Metro, and Evergy Missouri West Inc., DBA Evergy Missouri West, for an accounting authority order allowing the companies to record and preserve costs related to COVID-19 expenses. This order just sets the evidentiary schedule. The hearings will be November 12th and 13th, and I recommend that we support the order as drafted, version 1. Commissioner Kinney?
I am in support of the order.
Thank you. Commissioner Roop?
I am supporting the order.
Commissioner Coleman?
I support the order.
And Commissioner Holzman?
I support the order.
All right. All those in favor of approving the order as drafted, version 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is approved 5-0. Next up, file number GO 2021-0115. This is in the matter of Spire Missouri Inc., DBA Spire's motion for expedited treatment of its COVID-19 residential assistance program tariff filing. So last week, we approved a unanimous stipulation and agreement, which included a residential assistance program. Spire submitted tariff sheets for the assistance program with a November 20th effective date, but requested approval for the tariff sheets to go into effect on November 7th. This assistance program will allow eligible customers to receive a dollar match of up to $300 towards past due bills if they enroll and then comply with the terms of the program. Staff reviewed the tariff sheets and recommended that they be approved to go into effect on November 7th. No other responses were received. I hope that this is a program that will help customers who've been struggling financially through this pandemic, and I support the order granting the request for expedited treatment and approving the sheets to go into effect on the 7th. I recommend that we support this order as drafted, version 1. Commissioner Kinney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would support the order and also appreciate the company and your comments regarding our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Roop.
I recommend we approve the order.
Commissioner Coleman.
I support the order.
And Commissioner Holzman.
I support the order as well. I would just ask that we keep taking a look at that partial payment versus non-payment issue, but I support the order. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of approving the order as drafted, version 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is now approved 5-0. Next up, file number WU 2020-0417. This is in the matter of the application of Missouri American Water Company for an accounting authority order authorizing it to defer and accumulate costs and financial impacts related to COVID-19. Missouri American requested an AAO to track and defer costs related to COVID-19 as a regulatory asset for consideration in a future rate case. Earlier this month, a stipulation, an agreement was submitted. Under the terms of that agreement, specifically listed incremental costs and savings that would be tracked and deferred. The agreement also details certain customer protection efforts and Missouri American's contributions of $250,000 for a customer support program. After no parties opposed the agreement, we held an on-the-record hearing for the parties to answer our questions and describe the terms of that agreement. And after reviewing the agreement and hearing the parties' statements and answers last week, I think the agreement is appropriate. Again, would like to thank the company for working on this program for our customers and the additional support that they're providing. And I think that the agreement should be supported, and that's version 2. Commissioner Kinney.
I support the order.
Commissioner Roop.
I also support the order.
Commissioner Coleman.
I support the order.
And Commissioner Holzman.
I support the order.
All right. All those in favor of approving the order as drafted version 2, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is approved 5-0. Next up, file number WR 2020-0275. This is in the matter of Elm Hills Utility Operating Company, Inc.'s request for a water and sewer rate increase. Public Counsel filed a motion regarding production of documents seeking certain books, accounts, and papers from entities such as U.S. Water Systems, LLC, and Science Water Opportunities Fund, LP. Public Counsel is requesting these records for the purpose of determining if the investment capital for the upstream ownership entities of Elm Hills parent company could have an impact on Elm Hills debt funding. Of note in this particular case, in this particular motion, Public Counsel is seeking this information under Section 386.450, which is not the Commission's discovery rules. So Elm Hills then objected on numerous points to OPC's request for information from out-of-state parties, out-of-state non-parties, but those objections don't really address Public Counsel's authority under statute in 386.450 to request production of books, accounts, and records from any corporation, person, or public utility with the production occurring within the state, so long as the Commission makes a finding of good cause. So I do think that Public Counsel has demonstrated that there is an ownership relationship between the entities it requests to produce the documents and Elm Hills. I also think that Public Counsel has demonstrated good cause exists to issue an order under this statute due to relevant concerns about Elm Hills capital structure. So I do support this order granting OPC's motion and recommend that we approve the order as drafted version 2. Commissioner Kinney.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree that I think OPC has mentioned some excellent points as to why. I just don't, and I would point out that our statute and rules differ. I'm curious as if we can enforce this on the group, but I will support the order.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Roop.
I am supporting the order.
Commissioner Coleman.
I support the order.
And Commissioner Holzman.
I support the order. I'm also curious as to the enforcement mechanism, and we'll be watching to see how it plays out.
Excellent. All right. All those in favor of approving the order as drafted version 2, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is approved 5-0. And finally today is file number GR 2020-0372. This is in the matter of Union Electric Company, DBA Ameren Missouri's purchase gas adjustment tariff. Ameren filed a tariff sheet revising its purchase gas adjustment rate to reflect changes in the cost of natural gas. Staff reviewed the filings and recommended that the PGA rate changes be approved on an interim basis, subject to refund. No other responses were received. This order approves the tariff sheets and directs staff's procurement analysis department to submit its ACA review of Ameren's filing. So I recommend that we support this order as drafted version 1. Commissioner Kinney.
I am in support.
Commissioner Roop.
As am I.
Commissioner Coleman.
I concur.
And Commissioner Holzman.
I support the order.
All right. All those in favor of approving the order as drafted version 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That order is approved 5-0. That concludes tariffs and new orders today. We do have a case discussion. We actually have 3 case discussions, and Judge Woodruff is here to present those. These are the special contemporary issues that we deal with every year, and we're going to do the discussion a little bit differently this year. Typically, we're all there in person, and we all have notebooks and binders and go through each specific case company by company. This year being virtual and not together and paperless for the most part, at least I am, I want to try this with a spreadsheet format. So I think you all have the same spreadsheet to work off of, and we will go down the spreadsheet by order or by issue and make a decision on each of the 3 companies on that issue as we move down the spreadsheet. So hopefully a decent way to organize this discussion since we're all spread out. But with that, Judge Woodruff.
Yes, I'm here.
So anything you'd like to say setting up this discussion, or should we just start marching through the issues?
We can just go start marching through this as there are different issues for the different companies, of course. It is set out in the spreadsheet, so I guess we can just start with the first public council issue.
Okay.
Falling energy market prices.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
This is Commissioner Kenny. First off, I would like to thank the staff that worked on putting together this IRP analysis with all the groups together that we're going to work off of. Second, I would like to ask, in the past, we have had a caveat that if the utilities can point to where these answers may be elsewhere in the IRP, they could do that. We have also had a caveat that if it is overly burdensome or an unnecessary ratepayer expense, that they would point that out. I know, this is a newer commission since we've done this a year ago. So I don't know if that's going to be a part of this or not. That's my question.
As far as I'm concerned, those are reasonable to me, and we've done that in the time that I've been on the commission as well. So I see no reason to depart from that in this process. And I'm open to discussion from other commissioners if they feel differently, but I would agree with your assessment of how we should proceed on those things.
Okay, so perhaps if other commissioners have an objection, they could state that now.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Commissioner.
I would just question from a process standpoint, not that the input from the companies wouldn't, be appreciated, but should we go through the list and then submit the list and then let them respond, as opposed to having each company respond to each one of the questions individually?
Well, what we're going to do is this process will lay out what questions we want them to respond to. What Commissioner Kenny was just referencing is sometimes the response might be as simple as, we've provided that information here in this IRP, or to provide that information would cost X amount of money and be overly burdensome. Those are acceptable.
We'll receive those responses after we have gone through the document.
Yeah. So this is the case discussion. Okay. The product of this discussion will be orders to the companies directing them to answer these questions.
I got you. Okay. This is the signs that I'm the newbie on the commission.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And perhaps, Mr. Chairman, I should have waited till the end, but I did point that out specifically for our new commissioner.
Sure. No, it completely understandable. Makes sense. So we'll go ahead and start going through the issues, and then have discussion on each of these. The first order is, or the first question is from OPC, falling energy market prices. They did not request it of Ameren. Evergy agreed to include it, so I would recommend that we include it for Evergy. And then I would recommend that we also include it for Liberty, since the modeling is already set up. And if it's too burdensome, they can tell us. Those would be my recommendations on the first part of OPC 1. Commissioner Kinney,
I agree with you.
Commissioner Roop,
I'm in agreement as well.
Commissioner Coleman,
As am I.
and Commissioner Holzman.
I'm in agreement, but my only question would be, would we apply these equally across all three, or, are we looking to allow for deviation for the particular utilities on each particular question?
It's up for discussion. We've kind of gone both ways. I mean, it depends a little bit on some of them as to whether it applies necessarily to that utility. I mean, for instance, some of these questions have been addressed in a 2020 filing by one, but not the other two. So it would make no sense necessarily to apply it to the one who just answered it. But I mean, if you would, is your question, do you want to make Ameren do this even though it wasn't requested of them? Is that your question on this particular one?
No, not necessarily. This is not a specific to question one and specific to Ameren. This is a general, as we go through these, I just want to have a sense of equity between all three companies. And so I just want to get that out of the way in our first question. If we're going to make determinations for different companies for different questions, that's fine. But I don't want to have a standard that we start out with that would suggest that's what we're going to do and then deviate as we go. So, I'm just trying to get a base work.
Sure. So I would say in the past, we have strived to make uniformity in this, but it's not always possible or appropriate on every single question. So,
Mr. Chairman,
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, this is Kenny. I think that was an excellent question by Commissioner Holzman, and I've during my 8 years here, I kind of lean that if we have one utility do it, we have all the utilities do it. However, like in this question, it would exclude Ameren, but we've deviated back and forth on that in years past. But a good question.
Well, and I think that going back to your original point, Commissioner Kinney, of allowing the caveat of you can point to if it's been answered somewhere recently, or you can explain to us why it's too expensive or burdensome to answer, as a way to trying to keep it uniform. So if we want to include all three in there and allow some of them to answer in that fashion, we can go that route as well. So,
I think the way you have it formed right now is the appropriate way. Like on the first one was Evergy and Liberty we include. I think the other part was whether if Evergy says yes and Liberty's like this one, Liberty objected, but we're making them both do it. One of the other caveats is that they don't all do their triennial on the same year.
Exactly.
And that's why we allow that caveat to say we pointed it out in 2019, we shouldn't do it again in 2021. Things like that.
Yes. So hopefully,
and I'm good with that. I'm fine. I just, I'm trying to get to the answer. One other question I have on feedback on that is, what if the commission objects to the use of it's too expensive too liberally? What is it, if they say it's too expensive to do this study or to configure this in, and we disagree with that, do we have then a second round of considerations once we've been given that answer?
I mean, we can always individually order them to answer questions. This is just kind of a process to try and get as much information in one filing as possible. So, I mean, I suppose if a question came back with that answer and you or another commissioner really, really wanted an answer to it, we could draft an order asking for an answer.
Okay, perfect. Fair enough.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right. So question one, again, Ameren was not requested. Evergy we would include. Liberty we would include. Commissioner Kinney supports that. Did we go through everybody on that one? Question one?
I think you stopped at Roop.
We stopped at Roop. Okay. Commissioner Coleman, Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, I am.
All right, Commissioner Holzman?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, and then there was a 1B on the spreadsheet for the OPC question. Again, Ameren was not requested. Evergy and Liberty, I would say is not necessary. I would reject it for those 1B. Commissioner Kinney?
Reject.
Commissioner Roop?
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Coleman?
I agree also with you.
And Commissioner Holzman?
Support the chairman's position.
All right. Question 2. My preference would be to reject for all 3. Commissioner Kinney?
I concur.
Commissioner Roop?
As do I.
Commissioner Coleman?
I agree also.
Commissioner Holzman?
I support the chairman's position.
Okay. Question 3. I would also reject for all 3. Commissioner Kinney?
I would concur.
Commissioner Roop?
I concur.
Commissioner Coleman?
As do I.
And Commissioner Holzman?
I support the chairman's position.
All right, question 4. I would actually want to include for all 3, but I would say that instead of limiting this question just to rooftop, that we expand it to all solar, and that we perhaps do an additional secondary question that evaluates all resource options for virtual power plants. So include it all solar and add a caveat to the question about virtual power plants, which will be worked out before the order as far as the language goes. Commissioner Kinney?
I can support that position.
Commissioner Roop?
I will support that.
Commissioner Coleman?
I'm good with that.
Commissioner Holzman?
I'm in support.
Okay. Number 5, I would include for all 3, but recognize that Ameren addressed it in their recent triennial. So that might be their answer, but I would include it for all 3. Commissioner Kinney?
With our caveat, I will include it.
Commissioner Root?
Yes, I agree to include.
Commissioner Coleman?
I agree with including it.
And Commissioner Holzman?
I'm in support.
Okay. Number 6, I would do the same. I would include for all 3, but reject. But understand that it was in a recent IRP for Ameren. I understand Commissioner Holzman may have some additional comments here, but that's where I am at this point. So, Commissioner Kinney?
I'm in support of that.
Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I can support that as well.
Commissioner Coleman?
As can I.
Excellent. And Commissioner Holzman?
Yes, I'm in support, but as you mentioned, I would like to expand on the question with the Part B that would include resources outside a combined cycle that would analyze and assess opportunities to repurpose the utilities, facilities, and sites and detail how those have been incorporated in supply-side generation planning and modeling scenarios, and then to identify and describe how opportunities to convert retiring fossil fuel turbines, facilities, or generation sites have been incorporated in the supply-side generation planning. So, essentially, support that, but then have them look beyond just combined cycle into what else they can do to convert that space.
I would support that with the caveats that we've provided for as far as possible answers go. Commissioner Kinney, would you your opinion on adding a B?
With your comments included, yes.
Commissioner Root?
So I will support Commissioner Holzman's caveat with the chairman's caveat.
Caveated up today. Commissioner Coleman.
Well, yeah, I can't beat that, so I'm in agreement. I can support that.
All right, Commissioner Holzman, we will work on language for a question B before the orders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, next up, number 7. The first part of number 7. Ameren or Evergy had agreed to it. The other companies objected. Ameren rejected because it was already included in their 2020. I would go ahead and include this for all 3 on the first part. Commissioner Kinney,
I am fine with that also.
Commissioner Roop.
Yeah, I would support that. And I think if someone's already included it, they could point to that or just provide an update on figures if they're a little bit older.
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Coleman.
I agree with that. I think Commissioner Roop's comments make sense.
Okay, and Commissioner Holzman.
Yeah, I'm in support.
Okay. The next part of 7 was not requested of Evergy or Liberty, and Ameren indicated it was already included in their 2020 report. So I would reject that. Commissioner Kinney,
Reject.
Commissioner Roop,
Agreed.
Commissioner Coleman,
I agree, reject.
and Commissioner Holzman.
Reject.
All right, and the final part on 7 is the opposite. Was not requested of Ameren, was requested of the other 2, but I would reject that one as well for everyone. Commissioner Kinney,
Concur.
Commissioner Roop,
Agreed.
Commissioner Coleman,
I agree.
and Commissioner Holzman.
Agreed.
All right, that brings us to 8. I would agree to include this for all 3. And I would also like to note on this one, I would be open to moving forward on the cement block as storage idea that was brought up for multiple years and is conspicuously absent this year. But I think it would fit well in this particular question if we wanted to add a specific sub question there on that one. So I'm open to. I would like to include 8. If anyone else would join me on the block storage, I think that would be interesting. Commissioner Kinney.
I would include it without your caveat.
Okay, Commissioner Roop.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to look at this, I've also found it interesting, and I know that OPC asked for it in past contemporary issues. So yeah, I would support it adding in the block storage.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman
I support that position also.
and Commissioner Holzman.
I support the chairman and find block storage to be entirely fascinating and would love to see it in the report.
Okay. That concludes OPC's questions. Next up is Sierra Club. Questions 1, 2, 3, 4. Questions 1 through 4, I would reject. Commissioner Kinney,
I concur.
Commissioner Roop,
I also would agree with that.
Commissioner Coleman,
I agree also.
Commissioner Holzman.
I think there's some interesting questions that are posed in 1 through 4, but I'm not sure that this is necessarily the place to get those answers. So I will agree with you.
Okay. Brings us to number 5. I would include number 5. It's only been requested of Ameren and Evergy. Evergy agreed to it, and Ameren mentioned that it was in their 2020 report. So, I mean, with what we've stated as acceptable answers, I think we should include 5. for Ameren and Evergy. It wasn't requested of Liberty. Commissioner Kinney?
I'm fine, although it was already included with Evergy also, so it doesn't, I'm fine.
Oh, that's probably why they agreed to it. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I agree to include it.
Okay. Commissioner Coleman?
I agree also to include it.
Commissioner Holzman?
I agree. This is one of those questions where I'm not sure why we're not asking Liberty to answer the question.
Primarily because the parties didn't ask Liberty to answer the question, I guess. I mean,
I think it's a good question to answer, so I would be interested to hear from everybody on it.
okay. So we're including to Ameren and Evergy, but recognizing, you know what? They did both answer it. You're right, Commissioner Kinney. They did both answer that. Okay. Well, I mean, they can point to that as their
Well,
answer.
I can always go on. I mean, nothing has to be unanimous. I'll just go on record saying I think Liberty should answer this question too. So whatever you want to do.
Oh, okay. Question 6, I would reject. Actually, 6, 7. Actually, I would reject the rest of Sierra Club from 6 on. Commissioner Kinney, is there anything in there you would want to include?
No, I would agree with you because I think both utilities have already answered those in 2020, so it falls into that caveat, so I don't think it's necessary to ask them again.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on a lot of those answers. Commissioner Root? I think I would also like to point out that on the self-scheduling stuff, we've opened a docket. So on 10/9 and 11/10, I think that we'll see answers, or we should see answers in that EW 2020-0033 docket. So I would reject the rest of them. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I agree with the docket and what they've already included in the past ones. We can reject them.
Okay. Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to reject it all, the rest of it.
Okay. Commissioner Holzman?
I'm going to support rejecting it, but only because it seems like it's been included already. So I'm not rejecting the questions. I'm rejecting the fact that they need to be included in these orders.
Fair enough. All right, that brings us to NRDC. Question 1. Was only, so these NRDC questions were only asked of Ameren. But I think I would support on question 1 probably asking all 3 of them. Because I think that this is an issue that's becoming increasingly important in the landscape. So I would actually expand that to all 3. Commissioner Kinney?
Okay, so we're on the integrated distribution planning?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't add it to any other companies, and I'd vote to reject it from Ameren myself.
Okay. Commissioner Root?
Yeah, I would go ahead and support all 3 of them, especially since some of this stuff is starting to come to fruition. So yeah, I would support you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Coleman?
I support the chairman's position.
Commissioner Holzman?
Yes, I support the chairman's position.
Okay. On NRDC 2, 3, and 4, I would reject. Commissioner Kinney, any of those you want to see in there?
I concur.
Commissioner Root?
I agree.
Commissioner Coleman?
I'm in agreement.
and Commissioner Holzman.
I'm okay with rejecting 2 and 3, especially 2 since Amron's already researching it. But I would like to see 4 in the questions. We've talked about the value of solar for the last decade and a half. This is an issue that's gaining more traction in terms of how the panels are arranged, and this question specifically asks what direction the solar panel would face to provide more kilowatt hours during peak and demand loads. And if we can shave off the peak load shave from having to go and get off system fuel, then I think that the entire rate base is going to benefit from that. So I would advocate for number 4 to be included to all 3 utilities.
So are you advocating for number 4 specifically, or were you going to have
No, I'm
some
good.
modified
I'm good with
language
rejecting
for-
2 and 3.
Sure, but on 4, were you going to have your own language for a question, or are you asking that
No,
we
I
just
think this
leave
is.
number 4?
I think this is sufficient. You know, looking at the value of the solar tariff that encourages the solar installers to optimize the direction of the panel space. I think that's something that should be able to be modeled and answered, and I think that question is sufficient.
Hey, this is Commissioner Roop. I do remember in the past, we did try to get, I think it was in a rate case, we tried to get a value of solar study. I think it might have been Renew Missouri or OPC or somebody that was pushing for that. And I don't think we made them do it at that time. I think it was pretty close. So yeah, I would support Commissioner Holzman's request for the value of solar study.
Okay. Now, I'm okay including that. Do you want to include it for all 3, or just Ameren? I mean, Ameren's the only one that was requested on NRDC stuff.
No, I think this issue is big enough to have all 3 of them weigh in on it.
Commissioner Roop, you have any preference on that?
No, I think I would say all 3 as well, if they're, because I think it wasn't even Ameren that we were asking them to do in the hearing. I thought it might have been Evergy, but yeah, I would say all 3.
Commissioner Kinney, I assume you're
I
still opposed to it.
I just don't understand how we don't already have this information. I'm sure we do. It's just like, I mean, if they don't know now which direction to point a solar panel on a year-long deal, that's why they have some places that they're automatic and they shift as our dates progress because of the location of the sun. So I mean, what I read this as saying that we want to have tariffs that encourage installers to know what direction to put the solar panels. Am I reading it wrong?
But it's the value of doing that in relationship to peak load time. It's
Okay,
what.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I apologize.
No, we've been trying, coming from the legislature, been trying to get a true value of solar study done for 15 years. And so if this is an opportunity and a proper place to try and get our arms around what is the true value of solar, then I want to exercise that opportunity.
Okay.
And if I need to expand the question, beyond just directional pacing.
Okay, you're wanting to go back and get done what you begin, learn to get done in the Senate.
That's conjecture.
I thought only Daniel Hall tried to do that from this commission.
That's
Senator on Senator Crime this morning. Okay.
Well,
I'm trying to go back and get something done that wasn't done in a rate case. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I think I understand the reasoning of it. I don't think it's an undue burden to get that value and what it would add to our grid and to our peak hours. So I'm fine with that. However you want to do it, and I think all utilities are fine asking that question.
Before we get to Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Holzman, were you wanting to modify the question, or are you wanting to just stick with NRDC 4?
I think that on the heels of Commissioner Kinney's point of the direction being I don't want the direction facing to be the focal point, no pun intended, of the issue. I really want a value of solar tariff to be looked at. So I would say that I would modify the question just in so much as to focus on that.
Okay, so you will be working with us and the judge to come up with a
Correct.
question on this issue. Okay, Commissioner Coleman, would you have anything to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I think it was, the value is the focus here, and I completely understand and agree with where Commissioner Holzman is coming from. So I'm in support of his suggested amendment to
Okay.
this.
All right. Well, it sounds like we'll be working on language related to NRDC for inclusion. All right, and with that,
Thank you, commissioners.
yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for your work on this issue. I would say on 5 and 6, I would reject them both. Commissioner Kinney,
I agree with you.
Commissioner Roop,
I would agree.
Commissioner Coleman,
I'm in agreement.
and Commissioner Holzman.
Yes, I support.
Okay. Well, that concludes our case discussion for these 3 cases. Judge Woodruff.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Were we going to have an opportunity to potentially throw out a question that hasn't been addressed by any of the parties here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We did have, there was an additional spreadsheet for suggested questions. If you all look at that, I think there were 3 on there. However, I will say the first 2 we addressed. So this is just kind of looking at more specific language along those lines. Were OPC question 4 on virtual power plant and OPC question 6 on combined cycle units. We reached agreement on those, but there's some more language in that spreadsheet. The other one there is we did ask the companies if they would evaluate options of potential upgrades to the utilities distribution system in light of FERC Order 2222. No utility objected to that, so I would ask that we include that question as well. I think it's a very recent order, and I think it's going to have some pretty big impacts across the grid. So, Commissioner Kinney, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Roop?
Yeah, I agree. But did Commissioner Holzman have something else he wanted to add besides those 3?
I did.
Oh, well, okay. Well, we'll get to that one in just a second. Is Commissioner Coleman, are you okay with the additional?
Yes, I am.
And Commissioner Holzman, you're okay with the additionals?
Yes, I am. Yep.
All right. And then you have something beyond that you would like to propose?
Yes. I just would like to have a question formulated around the concept of resiliency, given the fact that we've just gone through or in the middle of a global pandemic that has introduced some volatility from the ratepayer side, rather folks are able to make their rates paid, and then the concern on the reliability side, not that there's been any reliability issues. The utilities have been fantastic in keeping us going, but I think now would be an appropriate time from a disaster planning standpoint to ask the question of how are they incorporating the notion of resiliency into their planning. And I don't have a specific question that I'm proposing at this juncture, but I would like that topic to be included into the questions.
So while I don't disagree that resiliency is an important
I
issue,
keep getting disconnected when I leave.
I'm not sure who that was. They should mute. While I don't disagree with you that resiliency is an issue, from a process standpoint, I'm not completely sold on this being the best place to do that. I think that in IRPs, and I think that if it was something that the commission wanted to support a working docket on, I think that would be more appropriate than this particular process.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If you support a working docket on digging into the questions surrounding backup power and how we handle other future potential natural disasters like a New Madrid event or something that would potentially be disruptive to the normal flow of power, then I'm fine with going that route. I just want to address it at some point.
I think that would probably be a more appropriate process than this one. I don't know. Does any other commissioner want to opine on this?
I just will make one statement for Commissioner Holzman that he needs to do a little research of the commission, because oftentimes we have several working dockets that end up in La La Land.
Yeah. Yes. And then we have to go
Well,
back.
I definitely don't want to go to La La Land. I'm not interested in the ticket to that place.
Yeah.
Commissioner Holzman, Commissioner Kenny has accurate directions to La La Land.
Hey guys, if you
located in Miami, it's located in Miami, Florida. I have a picture to prove it.
Commissioner Roop.
if you take a can and you start kicking it down the road, and then you bring that can to the entrance of La La Land, you get a discounted ticket.
Okay.
Well, then we should all get in for free then.
All right. I think we've reached the end of productive discussion on special contemporary issues. So, does anyone else?
I withdraw my question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other issues that they would like included in special contemporary issues? Okay. Hearing none. Judge Woodruff, does that give you the direction you need for those 3 orders?
It does, and we'll bring them back for next week's agenda.
Okay, excellent. And we will work with you on language for the ones that were not totally fleshed out.
All right, thank you.
Next up is scheduling. Friday, October 28th is the FRI symposium from noon to 1:30. Again, that's virtual. Monday, November 2nd is when we've got currently proposed for the USB meeting that was originally scheduled for today. 2:00 is the proposed time. I know that Mr. Poston has stated that he's available at that time. Or is there any commissioner that has an issue with a USB meeting next Monday at 2? Okay, we will move forward on that. Wednesday, November 4th, we have agenda at 10:15 a.m. As well as a continuation of the FRI symposium from noon to 1:30. Thursday, November 5th and Friday, November 6th, we have an evidentiary hearing in EO 2020-0227. That's Evergy Metro and Evergy West's MIA Prudence Review. That will be conducted via WebEx at 10 a.m., Judge Hatcher presiding. Thursday, November 5th through Wednesday, November 11th is this year's virtual NARUC conference. You'll all have schedules for those days. Wednesday, November 11th is a state holiday. Thursday, November 12th, we currently have agenda scheduled at 10:15 a.m. However, we may need to move that to noon if there's a conflicting hearing, which is currently scheduled for Thursday, November 12th and Friday, November 13th. We have an evidentiary hearing in EU 2020-0350. That's Evergy's application for an AAO allowing companies to record and preserve costs related to COVID-19 expenses. That's currently scheduled via WebEx at 9 a.m. with Judge Jacobs. However, if they should settle, we'll go ahead and keep agenda at 10:15 a.m. on the 12th. If they don't and we go to hearing, then we'll probably need to move it to noon. Wednesday, November 18th, agenda at 10:15 a.m. Thursday, November 19th, evidentiary hearing for WC 2020-0407. That's Scott v. Missouri American Water Company. That'll be via WebEx at 9:15 a.m. Judge Jacobs presiding. Wednesday, we have agenda at 10:15 a.m. That is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so that week's schedule might be open for movement. And then, of course, Thursday, November 26th is Thanksgiving. So any questions, comments, or requests regarding scheduling through Thanksgiving? Okay, hearing none, that concludes all of our business for today. So thank you, commissioners, for working through those special contemporary issues, and look forward to seeing you next week. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.